Hello everyone. I am Alice of KHR Arts and Cloud Orchid Publishing, and today we are going to talk about 5 easy things that you can do to significantly improve your writing. There's so many tips and tricks and gurus and whatever out there that'll be like, I have the magic recipe for you to make you the bestest writer ever. And a lot of that is a whole bunch of nonsense that's just here to sell you something. At the end of the day, it's to sell you a course, it's to sell you a book, it's to sell you a thing. These are just 5 simple things that you can do in your writing that don't require you to buy anything, don't require you to subscribe to any sort of training course or whatever. These are just really basic things that I've picked up along the way being a writer, and a lot of them I learned from my own writing professors. Number 1, super easy, one of the best things that I learned from my writing, get rid of the ly words. So this is a really easy thing to do. Don't do this while you're in the creation phase where you're just writing it. Don't worry about it then. Just write whatever comes to you. Use whatever word comes to your brain first. This is for the editing phase. Once you go through, find all those ly words like really and hurriedly and suddenly. And of course also the ones like very. So all of those qualifier words, because saying he ran hurriedly, you can say he sprinted. You don't want to say, he ran fast. There are better ways to describe things, whether it's using, a singular word like sprinted in order to get the point across, or to use more words in order to better describe what's going on, such as saying he stared at her coldly. There's such a better way to describe that. There's so many other ways to describe that. Using body language. How did he stare at her coldly? Is it the expression in his eyes? Is it that he's stepping away from her? Is his body language pulling away from her? Is it the tone of his voice? Is it that he's turning away from her fully, putting his back to her? Is it she feels a chill go down her spine with the way that he's looking at her, that it just is so visceral? There's so many other ways that you can describe it, and it'll make it much more engaging for your reader than saying he stared at her coldly. Just so many other ways to convey that. And of course, get rid of really, get rid of very, get rid of those qualifiers, because there's always a better way to describe those things. Instead of saying he was very angry, he was furious, he was pissed off. Instead of saying he was really sad, say he was devastated, say he's anguished. There's so many fun words out there, and I'm not saying don't be one of those people that tries to get the 12-point Scrabble words. Don't be pulling crazy words out of the thesaurus that you don't know how to use, that your reader doesn't know what those words are. They don't make you sound smart. That's not what we're saying here. We're saying find the best word. Find a good descriptor word. Find a way to pull apart what you're trying to say. All right, he ran really fast. Why is he running really fast? What is he running from? What is he running toward? What is his body doing? Maybe stretch it out and describe that. How, he's really pumping his arms, how his feet seem to be not even touching the ground. He's running so fast. There's just so much fun that you can have instead of using these ly words. So go through your manuscript, get rid of all those ly words, find better ways to be able to describe those moments, and you'll be surprised at how much meatier and how much more descriptive those scenes can be. Number 2, read your manuscript out loud. I've said this in some of my other videos, but again, this is just a super, super easy one that'll make your writing so much better. Read it out loud. There's so many silly errors that are much easier to catch if you read it out loud, or even if you use Microsoft Word. There's a little capability in there where there will be like a little robot voice that'll read your manuscript to you. If you don't want to read it out loud yourself, you can just sit there and listen, and it'll also catch those silly mistakes for you, and you'll stop and you'll be like, that's not right. So that's also a super easy way to make your writing significantly better, low effort. Number 3, find words next to each other. So this one is a lot easier to do if you print your manuscript out, but you can still do it on your computer screen. And basically, it's when you have words that are too close together. So for example, when I was editing Succumb to Darkness, I found that my most overused word was the word plush. I don't know why. I just did. I used it everywhere, just everywhere, all over the place. Everything was plush. And just seeing that in the sentence, I would be like, in this paragraph, I see plush, 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 plush. I would find it like 5 to 6 times a paragraph. And you would just, when you started highlighting it, suddenly it's everywhere. So if you see it where it's like on top of each other, like this sentence, the sentence below it, or even like bookend it, it can happen where you end a sentence with the same word that you start the next sentence with. That can happen too. So trying to find when you have those words that are living next to each other in the sentences and the paragraphs, stop and re-examine, all right, in this paragraph, where does plush need to live? Which sentence absolutely needs the word plush? All right, this one. These other sentences don't need plush. What can we say instead? Super easy way to make your writing so much better, to avoid it sounding simplistic and repetitive, is find those neighbor words. Number 4, use your 5 senses: sight, sound, touch, taste, and smell. It sounds simplistic, but it really does so much more for your writing. Now, of course, you don't have to go into this nth level of detail in every scene of your story. That's totally unnecessary. However, when you start considering the 5 senses for your story, it really does start to help you with really developing the visualization of your scenes and really being able to see the story through your characters' perspectives. So, for example, in Love of the Sea, I love describing the 5 senses. Love it. I just love getting super visceral into scenes and being able to describe them in infinite detail for the reader. But a really easy way to just suck my reader into those scenes is things like describing what foods are they eating? What do they smell like? What do they taste like? What does it feel like when they crunch into a loaf of bread that has a lot of seeds in it? What does it feel like when they dip an apple slice into honey and then feed it to the other character? What does that feel like? What does that sound like? Just considering the 5 senses. Again, don't have to use it in every scene, and depending on your writing style, it might be overkill, but just keeping those in mind. What is my character feeling? And when I say feeling, I mean like touch. Like, what do things feel like? Are they cold? Are they hot? Are they uncomfortable? Are they in pain? Is something feel weird? Does something feel gross? Like, there's so much fun that you can have with this. Do they smell something wonderful and amazing? Do they smell something disgusting and horrible? There's so much you can say about the environment they're in just by mentioning a smell. They walk into a warehouse and oh my goodness, they're just hit with the most disgusting, decrepit, rotting smell. Immediately, oh crap, this place is like 10 times scarier than it was 5 seconds ago. What could be making that kind of horrid smell? Something as simple as that can absolutely change the vibe of a scene and prepare your reader for a big reveal. They go into the cellar and they find a bunch of zombies. Or maybe it sets up something, an Easter egg, for fun later on in the story. There's just so much that you can do with the 5 senses in your story, whether it's simply making a scene more vivid or setting your readers up for a big surprise later. And lastly, this is a simple one that I learned actually pretty recently that is super fabulous advice, is you don't need to know everything that needs to happen in your story in infinite detail as you're writing it. So when you're in the creation process, let's say you're plodding along, writing, and then all of a sudden you're like, I know that my character needs to do this big important thing in order for the story to progress, but I don't know how they're going to do the big important thing. So let's say they need to unlock this crazy labyrinth puzzle room, okay, in order to progress in the story. You don't know how they're going to do that, though. You don't know what the labyrinth looks like. You don't know what challenges your character is going to face. You don't know how they're going to solve it. That's okay. If you know what they're going to do after they solve the labyrinth and you're really juicing and you're like, oh, I just want to get through this part and just get to this other part and write that part. Don't break the flow. Don't sit there and go, I don't know what's going on with this labyrinth. Just put in parentheses, character solves labyrinth. and just move on with your manuscript. Don't worry about it. It'll still be there for you to figure out and mull over, and maybe you'll figure it out while you're writing what happens after they solve it. So write whatever scene or part of the story that you're excited about. Worry about the other stuff later. That's what I personally do with my writing. I do a combination of pantsing and planning. I pants, and then we evaluate, and we plan, and then we pants again. That's how I personally address it. So I have been doing it without realizing it, where there'll be parts of my story where I'm like, I don't know what they're gonna do here. I don't have time to think about this right now. I have this other scene that I'm writing, and I'll just put in parentheses, they do a thing, whatever, and then get back to the story. It is so freeing to do that, to just be like, in parentheses, character saves the day. Anyway, moving on. Of course, you eventually have to go back to it and solve what's in those parentheses, and that can or cannot be that fun. And I call that sewing together my boring bits. Usually the parts, those parentheses, are not the parts of my story that I'm excited to write about, and I have to sit there and force myself to write about them after I'm done writing the exciting stuff, and I'm like, oh, I don't know, they do something. You eventually have to go back and sew those parts of the story in, but don't let it break your writing process. That is a big thing that I've seen, is that too many people feel compelled to write their story chronologically, and they'll get hung up on parts. Don't do that to yourself. You don't have to do that to yourself. There is no correct way to do the creation process. You can do it in whatever order you like. Technically, I write the endings of my stories far more frequently at the very beginning of my process and then go back and figure out how they get there. It's rare for me to start it once upon a time. I don't write my stories chronologically. I'm all over the place, so you don't have to either. So, we got get rid of your LY words, check up on your neighbors, use the 5 senses, read your story out loud, write the fun parts first. So these have been 5 tips that will significantly improve your writing without trying very hard. So I hope you all found this video helpful. If you did, please be sure to give it a like. And if you're new, subscribe. All right, y'all. Thank you so much for watching. Take care. Bye-bye.